welcome back. From his rise to fame on SCTV or in films like Uncle Buck and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, John Candy lit up any screen that he was on.
And now fans are getting a heartwarming portrait of one of comedy's most beloved stars in a new memoir all about the Canadian icon's illustrious career. Please welcome to The Social, author of John Candy, A Life in Comedy, Paul Myers. Welcome, Paul.
Good to have you here, Paul. Now, Paul, I saw on your social media that you and Ryan Reynolds, who both have projects about John Candy, gave yourselves a cute little nickname. You guys are calling yourselves the Candyologists.
Well, yes.
Can we get the story behind that one?
Well, it's like we're the only two people doing this work, and Colin Hanks, of course. Mm-hmm. And so it's a funny story. We had the book going, and we knew there might be a movie, and the Candy family told me about that, but we were working super independently. Mm-hmm. And then the day the book came out, Ryan Reynolds, friend of mine who knows me, said, Ryan wants to call you. So Ryan calls me and he said, could you please come to Boston? We'll fly you in and we'll do an event together. And so when I met him, I said, my fellow Candyologist.
Oh.
You know, it was like we're the two experts in the field who've been archaeologists almost dusting off everything.
Love
you know?
that.
Well, I mean, it has to be two great Canadians doing this
well,
work.
And you know, I gotta say, I had not talked to him the whole time I did this thing. And then when I met him, he's super nice, and he's like, he gave all the money from the show that he was doing to St. Jude's Children's Hospital, and he does Sick Kids Hospital here. Yes. And he's just really down to earth and made sure that I was taken care of. I had to go to Edmonton after. He made sure I got to Edmonton. And so I think we're like two rockets that launched separately, and now we're flying in formation.
We love,
love that.
Hey, can we go back in time? Yes. I want to go back in time because SCTV, we mentioned it off the top.
Yeah.
Boy, that was a comedy scene here in Toronto in the 70s. It feels like lightning struck the city at that time because you had Catherine O'Hara, Eugene Levy, Andrea Martin, Rick Moranis, and of course, the great John Candy among the original SCTV cast. But what made John stand out? Well,
they were all great, and they all had learned to play comedy together. I say play comedy because they were learning how to play like a team. And then John Candy had this way of being empathetic and vulnerable within very broad characters, sometimes nasty characters that had a humanity to them. And there's this thing that only an emotionally intelligent person can do. And he was a good actor, and a great actor, frankly. And he did comedy from an actor's point of view, and you felt like you knew him immediately. So he became a breakout star. And then we started rooting for him, me and my two brothers, Peter and Mike. We were watching in the suburbs of Toronto, and when he started going into movies, we're like, that's the guy from SCTV. And we rooted for him, and then the world started rooting for him. But the thing is, as you can imagine here in Toronto right this week, we like to root for the home team.
Yeah. Well, John's co-star and good friend Dan Aykroyd, he actually wrote the foreword for your book.
Yeah.
And in it, he first mentions a house at 1063 Avenue Road in Toronto. He said it was a place where John lived, and a lot of the cast spent time shaping their improv skills. So there's a lot of lore around this address and this home. So if walls could talk, what would that house say?
Well, yeah, and you got to remember the 1973-ish cast of Godspell with like Martin Short and all those people. They also hung out at this house, and they were all young actors who wanted to be social and that hang out and sort of make each other laugh and sing songs together. But they were also kind of training each other for teamwork. And they all ended up working together in other projects. Like to this day, Catherine and Eugene did a show together, Schitt's Creek. And, and Martin Short's still working with other people from that world. And so that's why the walls could talk. They would tell you there's a lot of laughs and probably a few tears. They probably grew up together.
And your book has a lot of great stories, including one that details a story about John Candy meeting Steven Spielberg. Can you tell us about that one?
Yeah, so SCTV, Second City Television, the second or third season, they decided we're going to rent a house in Hollywood and write the series in California because, frankly, it was winter. So why wouldn't you? Canadian, right? And so they invited a bunch of people, and this is how they knew the show was reaching a broader, at least within their industry. All these people showed up at the party. They had like 100 people invited, and there was like 500 people there. One of them was Steven Spielberg. And Steven Spielberg comes right over to John and says, I want you to be in my next movie. And John Candy, humble Canadian guy, says, sure, buddy.
Yeah.
And they'd all had a few drinks, and so he thought, okay, he's just talking. And then he said, hey, I like that movie you made about the fish, kind of razzing him.
Yeah.
And Spielberg laughed, but then the next day he got a message from his assistant. John got a message that said, Steven was serious. He wants to cast you in 1941, a movie he was making at the time.
Wow.
And so he did that movie, but he just did not believe it.
Wow.
So Canadian.
Yeah, so humble.
It's
right?
so humble. Speaking of Canadian and great Canadians, there's a story about your brother, the Mike Myers.
I know him.
You know him. So he actually, you write in the book that he talks to you about meeting John after a performance at the University of Toronto, and at the time Mike was a young kid.
Yeah.
And what advice did John give your brother?
So you got to picture this. Mike's always kind of been funny, but he didn't know how to get into comedy. So he goes to the stage door to meet John Candy, and he goes, "Excuse me, Mr. Candy, sir." You know, and it might have been like that. And he says, "How do I get into comedy?" Now, any other celebrity could have any kind of, he could either ignore the question, be rude to him, but John Candy said, you know, there's a Second City workshop downtown in Toronto at the Second City Theatre. Learn how to do comedy there. If you're good at it, you'll keep doing it. If you have a lot of talent, you'll get better at it. And then if you love it, you get to do it. If you don't like it, you don't even have to try. Go do something else. He said, just be cool, be yourself. You might not make it right away, but if you love doing it and you're good at it, it'll be a great job for the rest of your life. And this is super advice to give to and I got to tell you, the button hook to that story is, years later, Mike goes to Second City Stage, he gets in the cast, goes to Saturday Night Live, then he makes Wayne's World, a huge, huge hit film.
Yeah.
He's in a bar in Toronto, it's a restaurant actually, and Mike's buddy Dave says, "There's John Candy, you should go tell him that you took his advice." And Mike says, again with the humble, he goes, "I don't think he'll even know who I am." John Candy walks across the floor with his hand extended. He goes, "Hey, Mike, saw your movie Wayne's World. Like congratulations, buddy. Like that, you couldn't write that in a movie. Like you couldn't." And,
That's huge.
yeah.
That is huge. And you know, John was well known for being funny, but he also showed his range in movies like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. So I'm just curious, if he was still alive today, what kind of career do you think he would have had?
Well, he had, like I said, he was a great actor. So he was aiming to do more dramatic roles like the JFK and some of the things like that speech, the I Like Me speech in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles was very serious. And I think he was developing roles for himself that were more serious. So I think he would have done more dramatic work and maybe directed more. He did one film as a director that, you know, he learned how to do it, but he never got to the next level with that because he was cut short so young in his life. But I think he would have been a force. He might have won an Oscar like Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting. He might have done a serious movie like that.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Huge star.
Yeah.
Huge star. Wow. Well, Paul, that was just a little taste of the stories that are in this book.
Yep.
Thank you so much for writing this and for joining us to talk about it today.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It is called John Candy, A Life in Comedy. It is out right now. Please get your copy today. Why don't we take a break? We'll be back right after this.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, that was so good.
Hey, you, come a bit closer. We've got so many more must-see interviews, spicy debates, lifestyle tips, and pop culture moments. So subscribe to our channel by tapping the logo below and don't miss out.